audible and audible fine or not? I'll just check, then we will start and continue with where we left off. I didn't read much, right? We are live on YouTube. Am I audible and audible fine or not? I'll just check, then we will start and continue with where we left off. I didn't read much, right? We are live on YouTube. Am I audible and audible fine or not? I'll just check, then. Okay. Too much noises, right? Okay. Let me just check the stream once. Okay. Let me just check the stream once. It's fine. Okay. Hello guys, welcome to Psyched Minds. We are reading Ordinary People by Judith Guest. Chapter 3. Also, if you have not subscribed yet to the channel, do subscribe, like and share if you like. Chapter 3, page 22. He sits on the front porch steps, waiting for Lesenby. The air is crisp and cool, and he rubs his hands together, shivering in the thin denim jacket. He should go back inside, get a heavier one, but he doesn't want to risk it. Not that she will care or say anything, but the hurdle has been jumped once today, enough. He glances again at his watch, almost 8:30. Lesenby has forgotten. He hopes for a moment that he has, then prays he hasn't. She would have to drive him. She has a golf game. It will make her late. The wrong direction across town, the two of them alone in the car and he not wanting to screw up and say the wrong thing. Haul ass Lesenby Chrissake. Don't make me stand here until she comes out. Abruptly he jumps up, walks to the end of the circular drive. Another thought nags at him, threatening to surface. He shrugs it off. Something unpleasant. Facing the house, he stares up at his bedroom window. In the early morning, the room is his enemy. There is danger in just being awake. Here, looking up, it is a refuge. He imagines himself safely inside, in bed, with the covers pulled up, asleep, unconscious. The thought surfaces. His father has noticed. Whatever is wrong is now visible. That command, not call the guy, but call him today. Worrying, there is something to worry about. As he has suspected, he did not want to have his suspicions confirmed. In cooler moments, the fear cannot be shoved back. Though thought of as overactive imagination, too much hot sauce. Now he has infected his father, and the grey disease is dangerous to both of them. His grandmother was eager to inform him. Conrad, if you knew the strain that man was under these past months, the money was nothing compared with the strain. My heart went out to him. I can't tell you. Then don't. He felt like screaming, squirming to pass through the remark, untouched. He wants to belong to this house again, needs to be part of all these tall windows set low to the ground, walls half hidden behind thick waxy rhododendron leaves, the cedar hedge in front, all of it, all elegance and good taste. Good taste is absorbed through the skin, like rays from the sun. In this elegant, tasteful section of Lake Forest, Illinois, a direct quote from a newspaper article. They had laughed when they read it, and he laughs now, out loud. See? Haven't lost your sense of humor after all, but your sense of identity is what seems to have been misplaced. No, wrong. You don't lose what you never had. Lesenby's red Mustang hurls itself into the driveway and he tosses his book in the back seat, climbs in after them to sit beside Juan Buren. We are late, Stillman says, because Dickie's mom had to pack his lunch. 2 minutes. Christ, you guys were already late when you got to my house. Van Buren moves over to make room. Hey, listen, I damn near killed myself over this poli-psych exam. Yeah, the guy wants a goddamn personal analysis of it all. I was up till until 2 o'clock, trying to make sense out of the crap. It helps, Lesenby drawls. If you read the crap when it's assigned, instead of inhaling it the night before the exam, just a friendly hint. Tell me about it, Van Buren says. Stillman sneers. Get a sense of reality, will you, Lesenby? We swim our asses off every frigging day. When are we supposed to study? Lesenby shrugs. I swim, I study. Yeah, you're perfect. Stillman twists around in front seat. What are you reading, Jared? Is that Hardy? Junior English? Conrad notes. They are all senior this year, except him. He had taken no finals last year, not January or June. You got all junior classes this year? Stillman asks. They didn't pass you on anything. Van Buren yawns. They don't pass you on breathing in that dump if you haven't taken the final. Lesenby says, Kevin, will you quit screwing around with the dial? Get something and leave it. Stillman gives a mocking nod, turning up the volume on the radio. He continues to screw around with the dial. Conrad feels the slow, rolling pressure of panic building inside himself. The air in the back seat is being sucked out the window by a huge and powerful vacuum. Relentless, it will soon crush the car like an eggshell. They cross the Chicago Northwestern tracks and Stillman is immediately alert, on the lookout. Hey, there's Pratt, he says. Let me out, I need a jump. A small, neat-looking redhead in a blue skirt and tan jacket is hurrying along the street, her books in her arms. Nice legs, Lesenby says. Nice ass. Stillman is looking at him again, sees him glance out the window. Huh, Jarrett? Hey, look, Jarrett's interested in something. Lazenby says over his shoulder. She's new, just moved in last spring. She's new, she's blue, she needs a screw. Stillman sings. Van Buren yawns again. Christ, you're a goddamn comedian today, aren't you? He remembers just now, about Stillman, that it is too easy for him. He's too good looking, girls have been following into his laps since junior high and he has done nothing to earn it. In fact, does not deserve it, spending his time as he does, in tossing off crude remarks about them and then grinning as if he will be president someday. A diver on the swim team, in general he has observed that drivers tend to be crappy human beings, one of life's mysteries. Hey, a tongue twister, Stillman says. Jarrett falls for Pratt's ass. How's that? Lesenby and Van Buren laughs. The remark has an indelible quality that makes Conrad's skin prickle. Stillman is an expert at that. He and Burke had phrases that would sing in the locker room for days, for weeks. No, not today, not today. He wills his mind to slip over it. A blur of gold leaves and green grass sliding as they turn into the parking lot behind the school. Jarrett falls for Pratt's ass. Yeah, I like that. Stillman leers at him over the seat, gives him the presidential grin. What's the matter? Not funny? An undertone of faint hostility has crept into his voice. Conrad's stomach tightens. He needs no more enemies. He forces a laugh from the back of his throat, turns its attention outside the window. Forget it. Forget it. He was never a friend. Sends him a mental message. Screw you. He will not get it. Does not operate on the same frequency. Never will. So fuck it. Conrad, what's your theory on Jude Folly? What? Miss Mellon smiles at him. Do you think he was powerless in the grip of circumstances, or could he have helped himself? I don't know. He stalls. Powerless? I guess he thought he was. What's the difference? Her attention on him now. Full force. It will smother him. Too much interest brings out every ounce of reserve he has, makes him unable to think, to formulate answers, even to hear the questions. He looks blankly at her. The guy was a jerk, somebody says. All hung up on what was the moral thing to do. It didn't make any sense. That's too easy, Joel. And he breathes again, as her attention shifts. He knows, though, that she will corner him after class, and she does. I don't want you to feel pressured about this report, she says. Do you want an extension? No. Backing slowly out the door as she follows him. I'll get it done. You're sure? There's no need to push yourself. Wrong. There is a need. To regain his spot on the swim team, to get back into choir again, there are no choices at all, just endless motion. And no more mistakes, like the ones he had made last year when everything was sliding. He had made a lot of them then. He had brought in some poems to her. That had been a big one. Why are you writing all this about violence and war? Aren't there other things you would like to say, Conrad? This doesn't sound like you. Now it's as if the whole thing was her fault. She is trying to make it up to him, and he wants no part of those memories. He doesn't know exactly what he wants from people except that he prefers indifference to concern. Easier to handle. Please stop holding my goddamn hand, he wants to say to her. She tears his pride to shreds. Indifference, or something more definite than that. Strong waves of unfriendliness he can actually feel coming towards him. Towards his seat at the back of the room in chemistry lab. Mr. Raymond doesn't like him anymore. Why? They hardly knew each other before. And Mr. Simons, his college algebra or trick teacher, is embarrassed, won't look at him at all. Well, tough. So what? They can all go to hell. He doesn't care. He has gotten what he wanted from all of them. They agreed to have him back in their classes this year, didn't they? What he wanted from all of them. Maybe we ought to cut down on some of these extras, Conrad. At the meeting before school started, with the principal, Mr. Knight, his counselor, Mr. Hallworth, his father, maybe take a straight English course instead of English honors and drop choir. But no, he had not wanted that. And then Fognon, the choir director, had stepped in, told Knight that he was short on tenors. He needed Conrad for balance. Balance. For Esther, singers were definitely the prestige group of the school. A cappella choir, selection by audition only. They have a reputation to maintain, and Fognon has pull. If he needs Jared for balance, that's that. Choir is the one time of the day when he lets down his guard. There is a peace in the strict concentration that Fognon demands of all of them. In the sweet dissonance of voices in chorus. He has sung in here since he was a freshman. Fognon is a serious student of music. Also a perfectionist of the sternest sort who cares about nobody, about nothing other than the music. His shirt sleeves roll to the elbows, his tie undone. He drives them. Every minute of every hour that is spent there, they work, and there is only one way to prove yourself. You sing and sing and sing. All else is unimportant. Nice job, tenors, Fognon will say once in a while offhand. There are only 6 of them. He allows himself the smallest thirst of pride on those days. However, today is not one of those days. They sift down off the stands and he stops to retrieve his books from back table. In front of him are 2 sopranos, one blonde and one redhead, whose hair hangs silk smooth and straight almost to the middle of her back. No, not red. More of a peach color. The back of her head is 3 inches from his nose. He could touch it if he wanted to. Hi, Con. The blonde has turned around, is looking directly into his face. He can't remember her name. Hi. His face flushes, burns beneath the roughened skin. He can feel the rash begin to prickle, stinging nettles against his face. Have you met Gianni? Giannine? No, Giannine Pratt. Conrad Jarrett. Nice to meet you. She smiles, puts out her hand. He stands there, stupidly confused. He still cannot remember the blonde's name and she acts like she knows him, and this other one, the redhead, blue eyes, copper-colored freckles, a blue skirt. He suddenly remembers it is the girl he saw from the car. Jarrett falls for Pratt's ass. Goddamn you, Stillman. Anyway, he doesn't move, doesn't speak, stands helplessly waiting for inspiration, for release. I think you stand behind me, Giannine says. You sing better than you talk, the blonde says, giggling, and he remembers Gail Noonan is her name. Buck took her out once. Well, she says, we'll see you. They turn away and he walks blindly out the door behind them, down the hall towards history class. He thinks of a simple, spare melody, picking up the notes as they slide into his mind. Rainy day man. an old James Taylor tune. That one is really old, it goes all the way back to junior high. He hums it through to relax himself. He has escaped his time, but even the smallest, most insignificant encounter is alive with complications and danger. He wishes himself for a moment back inside the hospital where things were predictable, mercifully dull. He yawns at swim practice, and Salin, the coach, catches him. Maybe I ought to start a bet check on you guys again. He stares pointedly at him, calls him over for after practice. Jared, you having fun out there? Fun? Yeah, you ought to be. He sits, hands on his thighs, one thick ham hooked across the corner of the table. The point is lost. If it's not fun anymore, he inclines his head, wanting an answer. Right? I guess. You guess. Salin wears a threadbare t-shirt and khakis, rolled over his ankles. He does not look like a man to be feared. Conrad, sick with fright, stands mutely, waiting for the axe to fall. Doesn't matter. I didn't really want to swim. Breathing in the heavy moisture-laden air, while behind him he can feel the steam rising lazily from the blue grass surface of the pool. You on medication, Jared? Tranquilizers? Anything? No. Salin removes the stopwatch from around his neck. Did I ask you before if they gave you a shock out there? Yeah. Yeah, what? Yeah, you asked me before, he says. Yeah, they did. Salin shakes his head, clicks his tongue in disapproval. I don't know, he says. I'm no doctor, but I don't think I would let them mess around with my head like that. Conrad says nothing, does not look at Salin directly, looks instead at the low brick wall behind the table. It wasn't exactly an orgy of pleasure for me, you dumb prick. Salin is shaking his head. Your timing is lousy. I know. Look, I'm not being too rough on you, am I? But I'm wondering if it's going to be too much for you. He leans back, one arm around an upraised knee. There is a team effort, Jared. I have got room for guys who are willing to work at it. Thing is, I can't figure out anymore if that's you or not. He lets out his breath at last, but slowly keeping it neutral, don't beg. I'll work, he says. I want to work. Okay then, better plan to stay after. We'll see if we can get your timing back. No, not today, as he starts for the pool. Start tomorrow. Go take a shower now and get to bed at a decent hour, will you? You kids stay up till all hours and don't take your care of your bodies. His tongue clicks again, and this time in dismissal. And Conrad heads for the locker room. He's shivering, never hit it off with the guy, not even before he's too brusque. All knowing there is only one way to do everything, only one main street. In the car on the way home, Lesenby says, Salin's a damn picky bastard. He drives me nuts. Everything drives you nuts, Tillman says. The day is not complete without Lesenby telling everybody what a fucked up state the world's in, right? He turns around. What do you think, Jared? Danoff and Edge look pretty good, huh? Danoff and Edge are sophomores. They swim the freestyles. They have beaten him in practice every day for 2 weeks. There is a student electrical silence. Lesenby says, there is a sudden electrical silence. Lesenby says, they're not that good, Kev. No, they look pretty damn good to me. Lesenby drops him off and he lets himself in with his key. The house is dark, silent and empty. He hangs his jacket carefully in front closet and goes upstairs to his room. He sets his books down on his desk and stands, looking out the window from his tower of safety. Idly, he opens the desk drawer, sifting through a pile of papers, old stuff, schedules, letters, scraps of notes written long ago. Funny, she has never cleaned out this drawer. He should do it. Maybe sometime he will. Fingers ruffling, touching suddenly the glossy and slick surface of a photograph. He pulls it out, looking quickly along the bottom of it, white letters, first place medley relay team. Lesenby, Buck, himself in the middle, arms around each other, grinning at the camera, all confidence. On the main street, he snaps the drawer closed. It is like the hole in your mouth where a tooth was, and you cannot keep your tongue from playing with it. He goes out into the hole just as his mother reaches the top of the stairs. She jumps, drawing in her breath sharply. Sorry, says. I didn't think you were home yet. I just got in, he says. How was your golf game? Fine, cold. Her hair is loose about her face. She lifts it back. She lifts it in back, rubbing her neck. Your father called. He'll be late. We are not eating until 7. Okay. She heads towards her room. I have an awful headache. I'm going to lie down a while. Okay. She's almost to her door and he calls after her. I swam pretty well today. Selen wants me to stay later and work out. I might be staring in the 50. I might be starting in the 50. Good. The door closes behind her, and he stands a moment in the hall, then goes back into his room. He shuts his door and leans against it, trembling. A dull roaring sound in his ears as he doubles over, arms crossed, breast against his waist. His stomach tightens as if to ward off a blow. Chapter 4. The restaurant is dark. It has a heavy Mediterranean decor that Cal finds oppressive. It is not the kind of place he normally frequents. There is a lawyer's hangout, the quick lunch, around the corner from the plaza, but that would not suit Beth. This place is better for her. She had called him this morning, asked him to meet her here. Her voice light, full of excitement and good news. Well, great, we can all use some of that, can't we? And she looks like good news, seated across from him in a sleeveless net suit, the color of straw, a v-neck bordered in orange, a thin gold chain around her neck, all elegance and self-possession. So beautiful in every detail that men and women both like to look at her. He has watched her entire enough rooms to know that. He has watched her enter enough rooms to know that, walking humbly and proudly behind her, a modest smile on his lips. Yes, it's true. 21 years next spring we have been married. He grins at bartender. The envious customers. His description is accurate. Self-possessed is what she is. He emphatically does not own her, nor does he have control over her, nor can he understand or even predict with reliability her moods, her attitudes. She is a marvelous mystery to him, as complex, as interesting as she appeared to him on the first day he met her some 22 years ago on the tennis court at the Beverly Racquet Club. Ray's father had a membership, and he was with Ray that day, working off the tensions of a hideous law exam. She was a good tennis player even then. She liked to play with men because the competition was better. She had told Ray, approaching him first. She had a friend who was good. Also, would they like to play doubles? Ray was all for it. He read possibilities into it. Who cared if she could play at all? But she was good, and her friend was good. And the friend and Cal beat Beth and Ray easily, and afterwards, he was never sure how it was arranged. Beth and Cal were paired off together, and Ray got the friend. They went out to dinner at the Chatterbox Cafe. What a storehouse of trivia he kept up there, the Chatterbox Cafe. It was an evening of unprecedented events. He had had a date with someone else that night. Midway through dinner, he had excused himself, gone to the telephone, broken the date. He never had another with any girl except Beth. I was afraid if I had left early, he confessed to her later, I wouldn't have made enough of an impression and you wouldn't see me again. I was afraid too, she said. I thought you might be engaged or married, and Lord, what a job it was going to be, getting you away from her. I knew when you aced Ray on that first serve I was going to marry you, and that was all there was to it. He laughs out loud, thinking about it, and Beth, sipping her drink, snaps her fingers at him. Where are you? Nowhere. Right here. Just thinking. What have you got there? She has pulled an envelope from her purse, and the folded sheets of slick papers are suddenly before him. Athens, Rome, London, Dubrovnik. They said it's late, but there are still openings. If we can let them know immediately. Let them know what? I remember last year you said Yugoslavia, but Cal, don't you think London would be fun? Like something out of Dickens. We have never done that. Christmas in London. Listen, he says. I don't think we should plan to go away for Christmas this year. She looks at him over the rim of a glass. We go away for Christmas every year. Carefully he folds the sheets, places them in the center of the table. I know, but not this year. The timing just isn't right. The timing isn't right, she says. What does that mean? You know what it means. Yes. She turns her head slightly away from him, wearing her hair differently today, the sharp white line of her part at the side, wings of hair swept back and clipped at the top of her head. Well, they said it would be better to leave in the middle of December and book a flight back after the first week in January. We can't go in the middle of December. He would have to miss a week of school, and another week in January would be 2 weeks. He could meet us there, then when school got out, he could fly back by himself. Mother and Dad would... No. They sit in silence for a moment. I think you are wrong, Cal, she says. I think it would be good for all of us to go. For us all to go. No, just... no. The waiter appears with the menus. Never mind, she says. I know what I want. The fish chowder and a green salad, Italian dressing, and some of your special bread. Coffee too, please. Cal orders a roast beef sandwich and coffee. Leaning back in the chair, he tries to make out the dimensions of the room. He imagines it in the harsh, full light of the day. Square and ugly, better to keep it dark. Why don't you ask him if he wants to go? I think he will. Why wouldn't he? I think, he says, that was our mistake, going to Florida last Christmas. If we hadn't done that, it wouldn't have made any difference, you know that. Dr. Brand told us. Dr. Brand told us he was depressed. Dr. Brand is a GP. What the hell did he know? He sets his glass down rapidly, wrapping it smartly against the table. He hasn't meant to. The sound is loud and it makes her jump. Are you blaming him now? He gave him the physical just as you asked. What more was he supposed to do? I'm not blaming Brand. I'm not blaming anyone. It wasn't anyone's fault. I know that. You don't believe that, she says. You say it, but you don't believe it. I believe it, he says. I'm not even talking about blame. I'm talking about being available. We were busy down there every goddamn minute. There wasn't time to talk. What was there to say? What do you think would have been said? Do you think he knew at that point? And if he did, do you think he would have told us? I don't know. She shakes her head. I don't think he would have told us. The waiter brings their lunches and they sit silently watching him serve. When he leaves the table, she looks down at her lap. I don't think it's a good idea for us to blame ourselves for what happened, Cal. Fine, he says curtly. Don't then. If that means a damn thing. Sinks slower. Her head sinks slower. She busies herself buttering the piece of bread in her hand. Beth, he says. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry. She looks up. What's the matter? She whispers. Is something the matter? No, nothing is the matter. Then why can't we go? She leans towards him. You know how good it feels to get away? All the wonderful places we have been. Spain, Portugal, Hawaii. I know it's a lot to ask, Cal. I know we have expenses. It's not the money. But I need it. I need to go. I need you to go with me. I want to go with you, he says. We can go in the spring maybe. Any place you want. She sits back, then hands in her lap. No, her voice is flat. If we don't go now, we won't go in the spring either. That's silly, he says. We will. I just think that now we should. Think this time we might try handling things differently. This time? He's upsetting her, upsetting himself too. And he shouldn't drink at lunch, shouldn't have had 2 martinis. He is keyed up now, nervous. This afternoon he will sit at his desk in a half stupor, surrounded by a confusion of papers. Then are we going to live like this, with it always hanging over our heads? There is a determined set to her chin that moves him, even when she uses it against him, even when it seems irrational and dangerous, accompanied by ideas he does not agree with. Thus, as she argued stubbornly with Ray over dinner that night that the Michigan Daily had no right to meddle in the financial affairs of campus sororities, her stand was based on rights of privacy as he remembered it. He had fallen abruptly and thoroughly in love with her. It was on looking back as good a reason as a tennis ace. Nothing is hanging over our heads, he says, as much to himself as to her. Don't worry, everything was all right. She looks at him, reaching out to gather the colored sheets of paper into a neat pile, slipping them into the envelope. Then I don't understand you at all, she says. He sits at his desk, working on the papers Ray has left there for him. At 3:30, he has a meeting written with Sandlin. They will discuss a new angle on the annuities, a germ, recalls it. His ideas are always referred to as germs. His figure estimates are in the ballpark, cliches. They jump out at you from everywhere, but you never see your own. Howard called again today to talk about the Mercedes buying expensive foreign cars again. Hell of a good sign, wouldn't you say? Yes, he had agreed with the spot analysis of US economy, his mind automatically registering the old favorites. Where was Out of the Woods? It was missing today. He gets up to stretch and look out the window at the North Shore Channel, the fringes of Northwestern's campus down below, Evanston proper, the offices of Hanley and Jarrett, attorneys at law. On the 8th floor of the State National Bank Plaza, overlook the whole of southwest Evanston. He has always wished they were on the eastern side of the building, preferring to look out on frozen cliffs of water in winter rather than dirty streets, dirtier cars. It is not a pleasant corner in the midst of the grey Chicago winter. Other than that, it is a good location. The atmosphere on the 8th floor seems cleaner, steadier. Years ago, when they were getting started, their one-room Chicago office was hot and crowded. Their look-alike, cramped apartments on the near north side were hotter and more crowded. Yet, no more. Now Ray and Nancy lives in Glencoe, and he takes the train in from his England Tudor castle, walking on the plaza from the station. He tells Cal he's crazy to drive. Then train is the only way, he says. But Cal prefers his car. It gives him control over his schedule, and besides, riding the train has always made him nervous. He can't work, as he has seen some men do. He can barely read the paper. Riding the train gives him too much time to think. He has decided too much thinking can ruin you. Ray knocks on the open door, sticks his head inside. Got a minute to run this around before the meeting? Sure, come on. Come on in. I just want to clue you in about Sandlin. Christ, I tell him twice a week he ought to go to law school. He thinks I'm kidding, I swear. He thinks he's the only account we have. You got the annuities straightened out? Yeah, I think so. Have a look. They go over the file together, re-explaining the alternative tax consequences he has assembled while Cal scans these stacks of letters from G. Sandlin Corp. dating back over the past months. Looks okay to me. What's his problem? No problem, really. He fancies himself this big wheeler dealer, and it frosts hell out of him that his transactions are not unique, that they have actually been performed many times before in the history of tax law. So what are we seeing him for? Hell, I don't know. So he can tell his partners at lunch that he pointed out a few loopholes to those hotshot lawyers up on 8. Do me a favor, will you? Get him to stop calling every day. You're good at that. Closing doors politely. If I tell him, he's going to get offended, but it's the goddamn pathetic truth. If I had a buck for every time he calls me about junk, just niggling items, you know. Okay, I'll try. Hey, listen. He can hold off on the Naylor account. We can hold off on the Naylor account. I heard from them today. No tax court until January. Great. Ray sits back, puts his feet up on Cal's desk. Beth looks terrific, he says. God, she's tanned. Must be playing a lot of golf, huh? Yeah, she is. You two have a nice lunch? Yeah, fine. Hey, we ought to have lunch sometime, partner. How about tomorrow? Sure, I'll meet you at the quick lunch about 11:30. How's that? Ray laughs. I mean, you ought to take me to lunch. I know what you meant. Say, I heard you on the phone with Howard. Is Connie swimming this year? Yeah, he is. You think that's a good idea? I mean, letting him get into all that stuff again? I don't know. If it were my kid, they look at each other and Ray says, forget it, that was stupid, forget it. No, that's okay, Cal says. It wasn't my idea anyway. He set it up for himself. Went in to talk to the coach about it. I didn't even know until he came home and said it was done. He wants to ask, what the hell do you know about it? You with your two girls on 119 away at college and everything, roses. And how old is the other one? 7? What is that? Second grade? What do you know? But he doesn't. And he can't stay angry at Ray, who has been his friend since law school, nor at Harvard either. The concerned grandfather, the concerned father-in-law, all who are concerned only want to help. Well, who can help? Severe depressive episodes, high risk of suicide was the initial diagnosis on the commitment papers he signed last January. A 7-word diagnosis. Is there a 7-word cure? Is he cured? Listen, Ray says, I'll give you a couple of minutes to finish up. Okay. He pushes the paper around until Ray has left and reaches into the bottom drawer of his desk for the Evanstone telephone directory. Tyrone C. Berger, MD 651 Sherman Avenue. So near the railroad station, not the hottest of neighborhood, but close to the plaza. He can walk over the office when he is through. They can ride home together. He had told Cal last night that he made an appointment. A good boy, obedient. He does what he is told to do. Another duty of fatherhood, checking up, signing commitment papers and other papers authorizing certain specified treatments, protecting yourself from further grief, from any more facts of history that do not change, that cannot be changed, like the loss of Jordan, his elder, his light-hearted son, the one who never worried, who believed they would all live forever. 2 sons, Jordan and Conrad, both born 14 months apart, one now deceased. Another word from the commitment papers, part of the background information he was required to furnish. Deceased, too formal a word to have any meaning, a symbol without impression, without power to hurt or to heal. She was right. He lied to her at lunch. He does not believe himself to be innocent. It has to be his fault, because fault equals responsibility equals control equals eventual understanding. How things happened, why they happened. So where is the fault? Is it in believing that the people you love are immortal, untouchable? No, everyone believes that. Only no one knows it's what he believes until it happens. Then comes the rage, the banging about the walls, crying what if, what if. Everyone is always so damn surprised. That is the horror of it. The topic of London is not finished, he's sure, but merely held over for future discussion. Well, why not go? What difference will it make? If she's right and it made no difference, last year was nobody's fault. Nobody's fault. That is the truth. That is what makes it all so impossible to understand. That brings us to the end of chapter 4. Are there any... Nope. Any comments in the chat? Nope. Okay. That brings us to the end of our stream. I'll be reading the next chapter later. Okay, I'll be continuing with chapter 5 in the next reading. Bye bye for now. If you like, share and subscribe. If you have any comments, anything you want to share, any feedback, any suggestions, recommendations, all are welcome. You can write down in comment section of the video or in the community section of the channel. Bye, keep reading, take care. Okay, channel. Bye, keep reading, take care.